In late 2000, Fortune magazine named Enron the most innovative company in America for the sixth year in a row. It had been on the list since 1996. The company was worth $63 billion at its peak. It employed 29,000 people across 40 countries. It had transformed itself from a boring natural gas pipeline company into the most exciting energy and trading firm in the world. Wall Street loved them. Politicians loved them. Bill Clinton hosted Enron executives at the White House. George W. Bush counted them among his closest political donors. Universities celebrated their case studies. Then, in less than 12 months, it all collapsed. Enron filed for bankruptcy in December 2001, at the time the largest bankruptcy in American history. Over 4,000 employees lost their jobs overnight. Many lost their entire retirement savings, which had been invested in Enron stock. The CEO killed himself before his trial. Another executive went to prison for 24 years. The company's auditor, Arthur Andersen, one of the big 5 accounting firms that had existed for 90 years, was destroyed as collateral damage. And the case fundamentally changed how every public company in America keeps its books. Today I'm telling the full story. How Enron transformed itself, how the fraud actually worked, the whistleblower who tried to stop it, the collapse, and why this case may be the single most important corporate fraud story ever told. Because it created the legal and accounting framework that every fraud since has tried to escape. Welcome to Earnings Per Page, Wild Money Stories, Honest Finance History. Hit subscribe. Let's begin. First, what Enron actually was. Enron was created in 1985 from the merger of 2 boring natural gas pipeline companies. For its first decade, it was exactly what you'd expect, a slow, growing, dividend-paying utility. Then in 1990, the company hired a young executive named Jeff Skilling, a Harvard MBA and former McKinsey consultant. Skilling had an idea that would change everything. Enron didn't have to be a pipeline company. It could become a financial trading firm built on top of natural gas. Instead of just owning pipelines, Enron could create financial contracts, derivatives, based on the future price of gas. Then trade those contracts. Then expand the same model to electricity, water, broadband, weather risk, anything that could be turned into a tradable financial product. Wall Street loved the vision. The stock soared. By the late 1990s, Skilling had become CEO. Enron was reinventing itself as a kind of financial supermarket for energy. Lesson 1. Market accounting. The original sin. To make this strategy work, Enron lobbied the SEC for permission to use something called mark-to-market accounting. In a normal company, you report revenue when you actually receive it. But with mark-to-market, you can report the entire projected value of a long-term contract on the day you sign it, even if you won't receive most of the money for 20 years. For Enron, this was magic. They could sign a contract to deliver natural gas in 2020 and book all the projected profits in 2001, even if the actual delivery and payment wouldn't happen for 2 decades. This wasn't illegal. The SEC had approved it, but it created a massive incentive problem. Enron executives' bonuses were based on reported profits, and reported profits were now based on their OWM projections of future contract values. They were grading their own homework. Lesson 2. The special purpose entities. Here's where the fraud gets sophisticated. Enron's trading business was burning cash, even as it was reporting massive paper profits. The company needed real money, but it also needed to keep debt off its balance sheet to maintain its credit rating. So Enron's CFO, a Stanford-educated genius named Andrew Fastow, created hundreds of special-purpose entities, SPEs. The basic structure was this. Enron would create a shell company with names like LJM, Chuko, Raptor. These shells would borrow money from banks. They would use that money to buy Enron assets. Suddenly, Enron had cash, the assets were off Enron's balance sheet, and the debt was somebody else's problem. Except the shell companies were actually controlled by Enron. They were guaranteed by Enron stock. The whole structure depended on Enron's share price staying high. Fastow himself secretly owned and profited from some of these SPEs, making over $45 million in personal profit from deals that had been disclosed to Enron's board only in fragmented, misleading detail. By 2001, an estimated $30 billion of Enron debt was being hidden in this network of off-balance sheet entities. Wall Street had no idea. Lesson 3. The whistleblower who knew first. In the summer of 2001, An Enron vice president named Sherron Watkins sent an anonymous memo to the company's CEO at the time, Ken Lay. The memo was direct. She wrote, quote, "I am incredibly nervous that we will implode in a wave of accounting scandals." She described in detail how the SPEs were time bombs that would detonate the moment Enron's stock dropped. Lay's response: he met with Watkins. He thanked her for her concern. Then, he asked the company's lawyers to investigate whether Enron could legally fire her. They couldn't. Texas whistleblower protections covered her. So Lay did nothing. He continued to publicly tell employees and the market that Enron was fine. He sold over $70 million of his own Enron stock during the same period. Lesson 4. The collapse. By August 2001, things began to crack. Jeff Skilling, the CEO who had built the modern Enron, abruptly resigned. He cited personal reasons. He insisted the company was fine. Wall Street analysts started getting nervous. On October 16, 2001, Enron announced a $638 million quarterly loss. They also announced a $1.2 billion reduction in shareholder equity, caused by problems in their off-balance sheet entities. Now everyone wanted to know, what off-balance sheet entities? The SEC opened a formal investigation on October 31st. Wall Street started selling. Credit agencies started downgrading Enron's debt. Trading partners started refusing to do business with them. On November 8th, Enron restated its financial statements going back 5 years, wiping out $586 million of previously reported profit. On November 28th, Enron's credit rating was cut to junk. This triggered immediate clauses in their trading contracts, requiring billions in immediate collateral payments. They couldn't pay. On December 2, 2001, Enron filed for bankruptcy, the largest bankruptcy in American history at that time. The stock had fallen from over $90 per share to less than $1 in 11 months. Lesson 5. The human cost. Over 4,000 Enron employees lost their jobs immediately. Most lost their entire 401(k) retirement savings because Enron had encouraged employees to invest those savings in Enron stock, and the company had locked employees' 401(k) accounts during the critical weeks of the collapse, preventing them from selling while executives quietly sold their own shares. Some employees lost millions in life savings. Many lost everything they'd worked for. Lesson 6. The trial and the aftermath. Jeff Skilling was convicted on the 19 counts of conspiracy, securities fraud, insider trading, and false statements. He was sentenced to 24 years in federal prison. Ken Lay was also convicted on 6 counts of fraud and conspiracy. He died of a heart attack in July 2006. Before his sentencing, under federal law, his conviction was vacated because he died while his appeal was pending. Andrew Fastow cooperated with prosecutors. He received 6 years in prison and forfeited $24 million. Arthur Andersen, one of the big 5 global accounting firms, was indicted for obstruction of justice for shredding Enron documents. The conviction was eventually overturned by the Supreme Court, but the indictment alone destroyed Arthur Andersen. 28,000 American employees lost their jobs. The 90-year-old firm dissolved. Final lesson. Enron created modern finance law. The most important thing about Enron isn't the fraud itself, it's what came after. In 2002, Congress passed the Sarbanes-Oxley Act, the most significant accounting law in modern American history. It required CEOs and CFOs to personally certify the accuracy of their financial statements. It created the Public Company Accounting Oversight Board. It established new rules for auditor independence. It dramatically tightened internal controls. Every public company in America operates under Sarbanes-Oxley today. It exists because of Enron. The patterns we've seen in 1929 LTCM, FTX, Wirecard, and Theranos all became more difficult, though not impossible, to execute after Sarbanes-Oxley. Wirecard happened in Germany, outside US accounting law. FTX happened in crypto, in a regulatory gray zone. Theranos was a private company. Every modern major fraud has found loopholes around Sarbanes-Oxley, proving that the laws Enron created still matter. The story of Enron is the story of how American capitalism almost broke itself, and how the response shaped the next 20 years of corporate accountability. It is also the story of patterns that keep returning, confident executives with great stories, institutional defenders who attack the truth tellers, accounting tricks that look legitimate until they're not, employees who pay the human cost when executives walk away. Right now in 2026, somewhere there is a company being celebrated as innovative, using accounting structures nobody fully understands, growing impossibly fast, with executives selling their personal shares while telling employees to hold. The next Enron is being built right now. The question is whether anyone is willing to see it before it collapses. If this story stayed with you, subscribe to Earnings Per Page. Next time I'm telling the story of Bernie Madoff, the man who ran the largest Ponzi scheme in history for over 30 years. Drop a comment with which collapse you think we're closest to repeating right now. See you in the next one.